Rain tapped against tall windows. Inside the grand hall, candles flickered on cold stone walls. Elena stood near the fireplace. Her left leg was weak from an old fall. She leaned on her walking stick, trying to stay steady. Her mother's voice cut through the air like ice. "Look at her, Charles. She limps like a broken bird." Elena's chest tightened. She kept her eyes down. Her two sisters laughed behind silk fans. "Who would want damaged goods?" whispered Margaret, the eldest. "Hush," said their father, but his voice held no warmth, no defense for his third daughter. Elena touched the papers hidden in her dress pocket, maps she had drawn in secret, trade routes she had studied for months, plans that could help their lands prosper. But none of them cared what she knew. They only saw her limp. They only saw shame. "We've made our choice," her mother announced. "Lord Adrian of Westmore has agreed to the match." Elena's heart dropped. "But mother, you will marry him next month, and you will live far from here." Her mother's words were final, sharp as winter frost. Margaret smirked. "Poor Adrian, he doesn't know what burden he's getting." "At least she'll be gone," added Rose, the middle sister. "No more embarrassment at court events." Elena felt tears burn behind her eyes, but she would not cry, not here, not in front of them. She thought of her secret room upstairs, her books, her maps, her dreams of seeing the world beyond these cruel walls. "You leave in 2 weeks," her father said without looking at her. "Pack light, take only what you need." Elena nodded slowly. Her voice came out as a whisper. "Yes, father." As her family continued their cold planning, Elena made a silent promise. One day they would see her worth. One day they would know they were wrong. She limped toward the stairs, each step heavy with hurt, but deep in her heart, a small flame of hope still flickered. Maybe Lord Adrian would be different. Maybe he would see her as more than a broken bird. Miles away, in the quiet lands of Westmore, Lord Adrian sat by his study window. Autumn leaves fell like golden rain outside. His castle was smaller than Elena's family home, but it felt warm, alive. "My lord," said Thomas, his trusted friend and advisor, "are you certain about this match?" Adrian looked up from his papers. His dark eyes were calm but tired. "Tell me what you've heard, Thomas." "They say she walks with difficulty, an old injury." Thomas spoke gently. He knew his lord's heart. Adrian nodded. "What else?" "Some call her damaged goods. Her family seems eager to be rid of her." A shadow crossed Adrian's face. He knew that feeling. Being unwanted, being cast aside. During the war, he had lost his younger brother, Marcus. The guilt still lived in his chest. He had failed to protect the person he loved most. "And her dowry?" Thomas asked. "Small, but I don't need gold, Thomas. This land provides enough." Adrian stood and walked to the window. "What I need, what I hope for, is peace. A partner who understands that life has sharp edges." Thomas smiled. He had served Adrian for 10 years. He knew his lord was not like other nobles. Adrian cared for his people. He shared his food with hungry families. He worked beside his men in the fields. "The common folk will welcome her," Thomas said. "They trust your judgment." Adrian picked up the letter from Elena's father. Cold words about suitable arrangements and quick ceremonies. No mention of Elena's thoughts, her feelings, her dreams. This troubled him. "Prepare the guest chambers," Adrian said quietly. "Make them warm, comfortable. She's probably frightened enough already." That night, Adrian walked through his halls. Servants bowed with genuine smiles. Children ran to hug his legs. Old women called him dear boy and offered him fresh bread. This was the life he wanted to share. Simple, kind, real. He thought about Elena. What pain had she carried? What dreams did she hide? He had agreed to this marriage not for duty or gold, but because something in her father's letter made him sad. the way they wrote about her, like she was a burden, a problem to solve. Adrian knew that feeling too well. Maybe they could heal together. Two wounded souls finding peace in each other's company. He looked up at the stars through an open window. "Please," he whispered to the night sky, "let this bring us both some happiness." The day Elena arrived, rain fell in heavy sheets. Her carriage stopped before Adrian's gates. She peered through the small window, heart pounding like a trapped bird. His castle was not grand like her family home, but it looked welcoming. Warm light glowed in many windows. Smoke rose cheerfully from chimneys. Elena pulled her dark cloak tighter. She had practiced this moment for 2 weeks. How to bow without falling. How to speak without stammering. How to hide her fear. The carriage door opened. Rain immediately soaked her shoes. And there he stood. Lord Adrian was tall. Yes. Dark hair, yes. But his eyes were not cruel. They were gentle, almost kind. Elena tried to bow properly. Her walking stick slipped on the wet stones. She stumbled forward. But Adrian stepped quickly forward. He caught her arm with gentle hands. "Careful," he said softly. "These stones are treacherous in the rain." Elena's face burned red with shame. "I'm sorry, my lord. I'm clumsy. You're cold and wet," he interrupted gently. "Come, let's get you inside where it's warm." He offered his arm, not demanding, just offering. Elena hesitated. Was this a trap? Would he mock her limp once they were alone? But rain dripped from her hair. Her dress was soaking through. She had no choice. She took his arm. He walked slowly, matching her pace, never rushing, never pulling. Inside, the hall glowed with firelight. Servants smiled and bowed. A kind-faced woman hurried forward with warm blankets. "This is Martha," Adrian said. "She manages the household. She'll help you settle in." Martha had gentle eyes and grey hair. She looked at Elena with, what was that warmth? "Poor dear, you're soaked through. Come, let's get you dry and fed." Elena nodded, still confused. Where was the mockery, the cruel laughter? That first evening, they dined in a small chamber, just the two of them. The fire crackled. The food was simple but delicious. Elena waited for him to speak, to criticize, to complain about getting damaged goods for a wife. Instead, Adrian asked, "How was your journey? Not too tiring, I hope?" His voice was calm, interested, like he actually cared about her answer. "It was long, my lord," she managed. "Please call me Adrian. We needn't be so formal." He smiled, actually smiled. "Are your chambers comfortable? If you need anything changed." Elena blinked. No one had ever asked her preferences before. As days passed, the confusion grew. Adrian never stared at her limp, never sighed with disappointment, never compared her to other ladies. When she dropped a cup at breakfast, she flinched, waiting for anger. Instead, Adrian just said, "These things happen. Would you like some more tea?" Slowly, very slowly. Elena began to breathe again. 3 weeks into her new life, Elena woke to birdsong instead of harsh voices. She dressed carefully and made her way downstairs. Her walking stick tapped softly on stone floors, but here no one winced at the sound. In the great hall, she found Adrian reading reports. Maps spread across the table. Numbers and notes covered the papers. "Good morning," he said, looking up with a smile. "Did you sleep well?" Elena nodded. Then curiosity won over fear. "Are those trade reports?" Adrian's eyebrows rose with interest. "Yes, the harvest numbers from our northern farms. Would you like to see?" No one had ever asked her opinion on such matters before. Elena moved closer, careful not to trip. She studied the papers with sharp eyes. "Your northern route, it goes through Miller's Pass." "Yes. Why?" "That path floods every spring. The merchants lose time and goods." Elena touched the map gently. There's another way, through Sage Valley. It adds 2 days, but it's safer, more reliable. Adrian stared at her, not with mockery, with amazement. How do you know this? Elena's cheeks warmed. I study maps. In my spare time, I know it's not proper for a lady, but... It's brilliant, Adrian interrupted. Show me this route. For the next hour, Elena explained trade patterns she had memorized, seasonal changes that affected travel, better paths that most nobles never considered. Adrian listened to every word, asked thoughtful questions, took notes. You have a gift for this, he said finally, a real talent. Elena's heart fluttered. A gift? Her? That afternoon, Adrian introduced her to his steward, William. Elena has some excellent ideas about our trade routes. I'd like you to hear them. William listened respectfully as Elena shared her knowledge. He nodded and smiled. Brilliant, my lady. Truly brilliant. As days turned to weeks, Elena found herself taking on more tasks. She helped plan supply deliveries. She suggested improvements to storage methods. She even helped settle disputes between merchants. And people began to listen to her. Lady Elena, the baker's wife, would say, "Could you look at these grain orders? You have such a good eye for numbers." Children no longer stared at her limp. Instead, they brought her their small problems, lost toys, hurt feelings. Elena found she was good at solving both. Slowly, her voice grew stronger. Her steps became more confident. She still limped, yes, but she no longer tried to hide behind walls and shadows. One evening, as she worked by candlelight, Adrian found her. "You're up late," he observed. "I'm sorry, I can work somewhere else if—" "No, please, stay." He sat across from her. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me." "Our trade income has increased by 20% since you arrived. The merchants speak highly of your fairness. The children adore you." His eyes were warm in the candlelight. "You've brought life to this place." Elena's throat tightened with emotion. I've never been useful before." Then they were fools not to see your worth. That night, Elena fell asleep with a smile on her face. For the first time in years, she felt valuable. Winter melted into spring, and Elena bloomed like the flowers in Adrian's garden. She no longer flinched when people approached. Her voice rang clear in the great hall when she discussed business matters. Her maps now covered an entire wall of the study. "My lady," said Sarah, the miller's daughter, "my grandmother is sick. Could you help?" Elena had been learning herb lore from Martha. Her gentle hands and patient nature made her a natural healer. In the miller's cottage, she examined the old woman carefully. "It's a lung fever, but not severe. Willow bark tea 3 times daily, and this poultice for her chest." The grandmother recovered within days. Word spread quickly. Soon, people came from neighboring villages seeking Elena's help. A farmer's broken leg, a merchant's infected wound, a child's persistent cough. Elena's healing skills grew stronger with each success, but more than that, her confidence bloomed. "You have magic hands," Martha told her one afternoon, "and a heart that truly cares. That's the real medicine." Elena also discovered she had a talent for organization. She redesigned the castle's record-keeping system. She created efficient schedules for the servants. She even established a small school for the village children. "Numbers and letters," she told a group of eager young faces. "These are tools that can change your lives. Never let anyone tell you they're too difficult to learn." Adrian often watched from doorways as Elena taught. His eyes held something that made her heart flutter. Was it admiration? Respect? One evening, they walked through the garden together. Spring air carried the scent of apple blossoms. "Do you ever miss your family?" Adrian asked gently. Elena considered this. "I miss the idea of them, the family I wished they could be." She touched a rose with her fingertip. "But I don't miss the pain, the constant feeling that I wasn't good enough. "You're more than good enough, Elena. You're—" She looked at him in surprise. "I'm just me, a woman who limps and reads too many maps." Adrian stopped walking. He turned to face her fully. "You're a woman who heals the sick, who teaches children to read, who increased our prosperity through pure intelligence, who brings kindness wherever she goes." Elena's breath caught. "Adrian, I need you to know something." His voice was serious, honest. "This marriage began as an arrangement, but somewhere along the way, it became so much more." Elena's heart pounded. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "I'm saying that I care for you, deeply, not as a duty or obligation, but as the woman who makes every day brighter." Tears filled Elena's eyes, but for the first time in years, they were tears of joy. "I care for you too," she whispered, "more than I ever thought possible." That night, Elena looked at herself in her chamber mirror. The same face looked back. The same limp would be there tomorrow, but everything else had changed. She was no longer the broken bird her family had cast aside. She was Elena of Westmore, healer, teacher, advisor, beloved. She was finally, truly, home. Summer brought long golden days to Westmore. Elena and Adrian fell into comfortable rhythms together. Morning brought shared breakfast by the garden window. They discussed the day's plans over fresh bread and honey. Adrian valued her opinions on everything from crop rotation to diplomatic matters. "The merchants from Eastport want to renegotiate their contracts," Adrian mentioned one morning. Elena set down her teacup thoughtfully. "They're probably struggling with the new port taxes. What if we offered longer payment terms in exchange for exclusive rights to their finest wool?" Adrian smiled. "Brilliant as always. Will you handle the negotiations?" Elena's heart swelled. 6 months ago, she had been considered unfit for any important task. Now Adrian trusted her with major business decisions. Their evenings were Elena's favorite time. They would sit by the fire, sometimes reading, sometimes talking quietly about their days. One night, Adrian shared stories about his brother Marcus. "He was younger but braver than me, always jumping into rivers to save drowning kittens, always standing up for smaller boys." Elena listened with a gentle heart. "Tell me about the day you lost him." Adrian's voice grew soft. "Battle of Thornfield. I was supposed to watch his back, but I got separated in the fighting. He stared into the flames. When I found him, it was too late." Ala reached over and took his hand. "It wasn't your fault, Adrian." "Wasn't it? I promised our mother I'd keep him safe." "War makes promises impossible to keep. Marcus chose to fight. He chose to be brave. That's not your burden to carry." Adrian squeezed her hand gratefully. "How do you always know the right words?" "Because I know what it feels like to carry blame that isn't yours," Elena said quietly. "For years, I believed my family's words, that I was damaged, worthless, a burden. And now?" Elena smiled. "Now I know better. My worth isn't determined by their cruelty or by this limp. It's determined by how I choose to live, how I choose to love." Adrian lifted her hand and kissed it gently. "I love how you choose to live, Elena. I love your brilliant mind and your caring heart. I love your strength and your gentleness." Elena's breath caught. "Adrian, I love you," he said simply, "not as my arranged wife, but as the woman who saved me from a life of loneliness and regret." Tears sparkled in Elena's eyes. "I love you too, with everything I am." They moved closer together on the settee. Adrian cupped Elena's face gently in his hands. "May I kiss you?" he asked softly. Elena nodded, her heart racing. Their first kiss was tender, sweet, full of all the words they hadn't yet spoken, all the promises they wanted to make. When they separated, Elena felt like she was glowing from within. "I never thought I could be this happy," she whispered. Neither did I, Adrian replied, resting his forehead against hers. But here we are. Outside their window, stars sparkled like scattered diamonds. Inside, two hearts that had been broken were finally beautifully whole. On a crisp autumn morning, a royal messenger arrived at Westmore's gates. Elena was in the garden gathering herbs for her healing work. She heard the commotion and hurried to the courtyard, her walking stick tapping urgently on the stones. The messenger bore the seal of King Robert himself. Adrian read the official document with growing amazement. "What does it say?" Elena asked, her heart beginning to race. Adrian looked at her with wide eyes. "Elena, who exactly are you? What do you mean?" "This letter, it's about Princess Elena Marguerite, daughter of the late Queen Isabella. She disappeared as a child after a terrible accident." Eleanor's world tilted. That's impossible." But memories began flooding back. Memories she had buried deep. A beautiful woman with kind eyes singing lullabies. A golden crown catching sunlight. A terrible fall down marble stairs. "The accident," she whispered. "I was running through the palace. I fell my leg." Adrian read further. "It says here that after the accident, a grieving nobleman took the injured princess away, claimed he could provide better care away from court politics." Elena sank onto a garden bench, her mind reeling. "My father, the man I called father, he isn't—" "According to this, your real father was King Robert's younger brother. When he died in battle, certain nobles wanted to prevent your claim to the throne. The accident provided the perfect opportunity to hide you away." Elena's hands shook. "All these years they knew who I really was, and they still treated me like an embarrassment," Adrian finished gently, "because a limping princess threatened their political plans." The messenger cleared his throat. "Your Highness, the king requests your immediate return to court. There are matters of succession that require your attention." Elena looked up at Adrian with frightened eyes. "What does this mean for us?" Before Adrian could answer, another commotion arose at the gates. Elena's heart sank as she recognized the approaching carriage. Her adoptive family had come to Westmore. Her mother stepped out first, dressed in fine silks, but wearing a cold expression. Margaret and Rose followed, their faces twisted with barely concealed anger. "So," her mother said sharply, "the crippled girl thinks she's royalty now?" Elena stood slowly, leaning on her walking stick, but for the first time she didn't cower under their cruel gaze. "Mother," she said quietly, "or should I say, Lady Catherine, since you're not actually my mother at all." Margaret stepped forward with a sneer. "Royal blood or not, you're still the same limping failure. Do you think a crown will fix that twisted leg?" Elena felt Adrian move protectively beside her, but she lifted her hand, signaling that she could handle this herself. "You're right, Margaret. I still limp. I probably always will." Elena's voice grew stronger. "But I've learned something important since leaving your house." "What's that?" Rose asked mockingly. Elena smiled, a real, confident smile. "I've learned that my worth has nothing to do with how I walk, and everything to do with how I choose to live." She looked at each of them in turn, these people who had tormented her for years, who had made her believe she was worthless. "I've healed the sick, I've taught children to read, I've helped this land prosper through fair trade and honest dealing, I've earned respect through kindness and intelligence." Elena stepped closer, no longer the frightened girl they remembered. "You taught me that I was broken, but you were wrong. I was never broken. I was just waiting to find where I truly belonged." The royal messenger stepped forward. "Your Highness, we really must depart for the capital." Elena looked at Adrian with worried eyes. Will you come with me?" Adrian took her hand firmly. "Wherever you go, I go. We face this together." As they prepared to leave for court, Elena felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Her past was finally clear, her future was uncertain. But one thing she knew for sure, she was no longer afraid of who she was. The royal court buzzed with whispers when Ellen arrived. She walked through the great throne room, her walking stick tapping against polished marble floors. Nobles turned to stare, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden contempt. "Is that really her?" she heard someone whisper. "The lost princess? But look how she walks. Such a shame, royal blood wasted on damaged goods." Elena felt the old familiar sting of judgment, but this time something was different. Adrian walked beside her, proud and unwavering, and more importantly, she knew her own worth now. King Robert sat upon his golden throne, an elderly man with kind eyes that reminded Elena of someone, herself perhaps. "Princess Elena," he said warmly, rising to greet her. "My dear niece, you have your mother's eyes." Elena curtsied carefully, managing not to stumble. "Your Majesty, I'm honored to meet my true family at last." The king stepped down from his throne and embraced her gently. "The honor is mine, child. I've searched for you for 20 years. But not everyone in the court was pleased by Elena's return. Duke Harrison, a cruel-faced man with calculating eyes, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, surely we must consider the princess's condition." "What condition?" the king asked sharply. "Her injury, her inability to perform royal duties as expected. Perhaps it would be kinder to let her remain in her simple country life." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. Here it was again, the same old song. She wasn't good enough, not perfect enough, not whole enough. But then Elena remembered Sarah, the miller's daughter, thanking her for saving her grandmother's life. She remembered the village children reading their first words under her patient teaching. She remembered Adrian's eyes when he told her she was extraordinary. Elena stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Duke Harrison raises an interesting point," she said calmly. "He questions whether I can perform royal duties." The Duke smirked, thinking he had won. Elena continued, "Perhaps we should examine what royal duties truly are." She moved to the center of the room, all eyes upon her. "Is it royal to heal the sick? Because I have saved dozens of lives with these hands." She held up her hands confidently. "Is it royal to educate the common people? Because I have taught an entire village to read and write." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "Is it royal to increase prosperity through wisdom and fair dealing? Because I have improved trade relations and increased revenue by 30%. Gasps echoed through the room. These were impressive accomplishments for anyone, let alone a woman they had dismissed as worthless. Elena looked directly at Duke Harrison. "You judge me by my limp, but a true ruler is measured by their service to their people, not by how gracefully they can dance at court." She turned to address the entire assembly. "I may walk differently than you expect, but I think clearly, I act with compassion, I lead with wisdom. These are the qualities that matter in a ruler." King Robert beamed with pride, spoken like a true princess, like true royalty. But Elena wasn't finished. She looked back at her adoptive family, who stood in the corner with sour expressions. "Lady Catherine, Lord Charles, you taught me that I was worthless because of my injury. You made me believe that my value as a person depended on having a perfect body." Elena's voice carried across the silent room. "But you were wrong, completely, utterly wrong. My worth comes from my actions, my character, my heart, and by those measures," Elena smiled confidently, "I am priceless." The throne room erupted in applause. Nobles who had whispered cruel words moments before now clapped with genuine respect. Duke Harrison's face flushed red with embarrassment. Lady Catherine looked as though she had swallowed something bitter. King Robert approached Elena with tears in his eyes. "My dear, you are everything a princess should be, everything a ruler should be. I am proud to call you my heir." Elena felt tears of joy streaming down her face. But these were not tears of pain or shame. These were tears of triumph, of recognition, of finally truly coming home. Adrian stepped forward and took her hand. "I am so proud of you," he whispered. Elena squeezed his hand tightly. "We did this together," she whispered back. As the court continued to celebrate around them, Elena realized that her journey was complete. She had traveled from shame to strength, from hiding to shining, from broken bird to soaring eagle. She was Princess Elena, and she was exactly who she was meant to be. 3 months later, Elena's coronation day dawned bright and clear. She stood before the mirror in her royal chambers, wearing a gown of deep blue silk. The crown jewels sparkled on the dressing table beside her, but Elena's attention was drawn to something else entirely. Her walking stick, carved from dark oak, worn smooth by years of use. Some had suggested she try to hide it during the ceremony, use props or supports that would be less noticeable. Elena picked it up and ran her fingers over the familiar wood. This stick had supported her through her darkest days. It had been with her when she took her first confident steps in Westmore, when she walked through villages healing the sick, when she stood up to Duke Harrison and reclaimed her worth. "My lady." Martha appeared in the doorway. "It's time." Elena nodded, lifting her chin with determination. "I'm ready." The cathedral was packed with nobles, commoners, and dignitaries from neighboring kingdoms. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting rainbow patterns on the floor. Elena walked down the aisle with grace and purpose. Her walking stick tapped a steady rhythm against the stone floor. But now, instead of shame, it beat out a song of triumph. She saw Adrian in the front row, wearing his finest clothes, but still with that gentle smile that had won her heart. She saw the people of Westmore, the baker's wife, the miller's daughter, the children she had taught to read. But she also saw her adoptive family in the back, their faces sour with resentment. Duke Harrison sat with arms crossed, clearly bitter about recent events. When Eleanor reached the altar, King Robert stood to address the assembly. "People of the realm," his voice rang out strong and clear. "Today we crown not just a princess, but a true leader. Someone who has proven that nobility comes not from perfect appearance, but from perfect heart." Elena knelt carefully, her walking stick resting beside her. The ancient crown was placed upon her head, heavy with jewels and history, but somehow it felt right. "Rise, Princess Elena, rightful heir to the throne." Elena stood slowly, gracefully. The crowd erupted in cheers. But then Duke Harrison stood up, his face twisted with anger. "This is absurd," he shouted over the celebration. "A crippled woman cannot rule. She will make us a laughingstock among other nations." The crowd fell silent. Elena felt that old familiar chill of judgment. But this time, something unexpected happened. The baker's wife stood up in the commoners' section. "Princess Elena saved my husband's life when the fever took him." The miller called out, "She taught my daughter to read. Now my girl can run our business." One by one, the common people began to stand, sharing stories of Eleanor's kindness, her wisdom, her healing touch. "She's more royal than any of you fancy lords," shouted an elderly farmer. Even some of the nobles began to nod in agreement. They had witnessed Elena's intelligence during court sessions, her fair handling of disputes, her innovative solutions to old problems. Elena looked at Duke Harrison with calm, steady eyes. "You're right about one thing, Duke Harrison. I am different from other rulers. I don't rule from a throne room, removed from my people's lives. I rule from among them, with them." She gestured to the crowd with her free hand, her walking stick steady in the other. "These people don't need a ruler who can dance perfectly at balls. They need someone who understands their struggles, someone who has faced adversity and learned to overcome it." Elena's voice grew stronger, more confident. "I may walk with a stick, but I stand on unshakable ground, the ground of earned respect, of proven service, of love freely given and freely returned." She looked directly at Lady Catherine, her adoptive mother, who sat pale and silent. "You taught me to be ashamed of my differences, but my differences are what make me strong, what make me wise, what make me, me." The crowd erupted in the loudest cheer yet. Even hardened nobles found themselves clapping with genuine enthusiasm. Duke Harrison sank back into his seat, defeated. Lady Catherine and her family looked around nervously as other nobles distanced themselves from their obvious cruelty. King Robert placed his hand on Eleanor's shoulder. "Princess Eleanor speaks truth. She has already proven herself a leader beyond measure." Eleanor smiled, feeling the weight of the crown, but also the lightness of complete acceptance. She had fought for this moment, earned it through years of pain, growth and service. As the ceremony concluded and people began to file out, Adrian approached the altar. "Your Highness," he said with a playful bow. "My lord," Eleanor replied with equally playful formality. Then they both laughed, and Adrian took her hand. "How does it feel to be royalty?" he asked. Eleanor considered this, looking around the cathedral that was now hers, at the people who had chosen to follow her, at the man who had loved her before anyone knew she was a princess. "It feels like coming home," she said simply. And for the first time in her life, Eleanor felt completely, perfectly, beautifully whole. 5 years later, Eleanor stood on the balcony of her royal castle, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Her walking stick rested against the stone railing, but she no longer needed to lean on it constantly, not because her limp had disappeared, but because her confidence had grown so strong that it supported her more than any stick ever could. "Good morning, Your Majesty." Eleanor turned to see Adrian approaching with a steaming cup of tea, and their 3-year-old daughter Rose toddling beside him on chubby legs. "Mama," Rose squealed, running to wrap her arms around Eleanor's legs. Alina scooped up her daughter, marveling as always at this perfect little person. Rose had Adrian's dark eyes and Alina's curious mind, and thankfully no sign of her mother's limp, though Alina would love her just as fiercely if she had. "How are the morning reports?" Adrian asked, settling beside them on the balcony. "Excellent. The new trade route through Sage Valley has increased our prosperity by 50%. The healing centers in every village are reducing illness dramatically, and Elaine smiled proudly. Our literacy rate is now the highest in all neighboring kingdoms." Adrian kissed her temple gently. "I'm so proud of you, though I can't say I'm surprised." Below them, the castle courtyard buzzed with activity. Elena had transformed the royal residence into something unprecedented, a working palace where nobles and commoners mingled freely. Children attended school in the East Wing, healers trained in the medical quarters. The Great Hall hosted trade negotiations alongside royal ceremonies. "Mama, tell story," Rose demanded, settling into Elena's lap. "Which story, sweetheart?" "About the princess who was sad but then became happy." Elena exchanged a amused look with Adrian. Their daughter's favorite bedtime story was a simplified version of Elena's own journey. "Once upon a time," Elena began, "there was a princess who thought she was broken because she walked differently than others." As she told the familiar tale, Elena's mind wandered to all the changes of recent years. Lady Catherine and her daughters had faded into obscurity, their cruelty finally recognized for what it was. Duke Harrison had been stripped of his lands for attempting to undermine the crown. But Elena had chosen mercy over revenge. She'd given them small pensions and quiet lives away from court, not because they deserved her kindness, but because she had learned that forgiveness freed her own heart. Her healing centers had saved thousands of lives. Her educational programs had lifted entire families out of poverty. Her fair trade policies had brought prosperity to all levels of society. But perhaps most importantly, Elena had become a symbol, a beacon for anyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough, weren't perfect enough, weren't whole enough. Letters arrived weekly from young women across the kingdom and beyond. girls who had been rejected for their appearance, their abilities, their circumstances. Princess Eleanor, one recent letter had read, "I was born with one arm shorter than the other. My family said no one would ever want me, but after hearing your story, I've started my own bakery. And guess what? People don't care about my arm, they just love my bread." These letters filled Elena's heart more than any crown jewel ever could. And the princess learned that being different wasn't a curse. Elena continued Rose's favorite story. It was a gift, because her differences helped her understand other people who were hurting. "And she lived happily ever after?" Rose asked, even though she knew the ending. "She lived meaningfully ever after," Elena corrected gently, "which is even better than just being happy." Rose nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. That afternoon, Elena held court in the great hall. As always, she listened to disputes with patience and wisdom. A merchant claimed another had cheated him. A farmer needed help with a neighbor's boundary dispute. A young woman sought advice about an abusive husband. Elena handled each case with careful thought and compassion. Her walking stick rested beside her throne, but she no longer thought of it as a sign of weakness. It was simply part of who she was, like her brown hair, or her love of maps, or her gift for healing. After court, Elena walked through the village streets with Rose in her arms and Adrian by her side. People waved and called out greetings, not because protocol demanded it, but because they genuinely loved their princess. "Lady Elena," called out Thomas the blacksmith, "my boy Marcus just finished reading his first book, thanks to your schools." "Princess Elena," shouted Sarah, now grown and married with children of her own, "will you bless our new baby next week?" Elena waved and smiled, her heart full to bursting. That evening, as she tucked Rose into bed, her daughter asked a new question. "Mama, why do you have that stick?" Elena sat on the edge of the small bed, considering how to answer. "Well, sweetheart, when I was little, I hurt my leg very badly. It never healed quite right, so sometimes I need help walking." Rose nodded seriously. "Does it make you sad?" Elena thought about this honestly. "Sometimes it used to make me sad, because some people said mean things about it, but then I learned something important." "What?" "I learned that the stick doesn't make me weak. It makes me remember to be kind to other people who are struggling, and that's actually a very good thing to remember." Rose smiled and hugged her mother tight. "I think your stick is nice." "I do too, sweetheart. I do too." Later that night, Elena and Adrian sat in their private chambers, working by candlelight. Elena was reviewing plans for new hospitals. Adrian was reading reports from their expanded trade network. "Do you ever wonder," Adrian said quietly, "what would have happened if we hadn't found each other?" Elena looked up from her papers. "You mean if I'd stayed hidden away as the damaged daughter? If you'd married someone else?" Elena considered this. I think we both would have survived, but we never would have truly lived." Adrian reached across the space between their chairs to take her hand. "I love the life we've built together," he said. "Not just the crown and the castle, but this, the meaningful work, the family we've created, the way we've learned to see beauty in imperfect things." Elena squeezed his hand. "Including imperfect people?" "Especially imperfect people. Perfect people are boring." Adrian grinned. "They have no interesting stories to tell." Elena laughed, the sound bright and free. As they prepared for bed, Elena caught sight of herself in the mirror. The same face that had once caused her such shame now looked back with confidence and peace. Her leg would always be weak. Her walk would always be different, but she had learned the most important truth of all. She was not broken. She had never been broken. She was beautifully, perfectly, exactly who she was meant to be. And she lived meaningfully and joyfully ever after. The sun barely showed over the hills. Cold air filled the stone manor. Elena stood by her window, watching the world wake up. She was different from other ladies. She rode horses fast. She laughed too loud. She spoke her mind when others stayed quiet. Her family hated this about her. Elena. Her mother's sharp voice cut through the morning silence. Come here, now. Elena sighed. She knew that tone. It meant trouble. She walked downstairs. Her boots clicked on the cold stones. Her mother stood in the hall. Her father sat in his chair. Her sister Mary smirked from the corner. We have news, her mother said. Her voice was ice cold. You are getting married. Elena's heart stopped. What? Count Adrian needs a wife. Her father spoke without looking up. We agreed to the match. Mary laughed. Good luck with that one, sister. Elena felt trapped, like a bird in a cage. Who is Count Adrian? Her mother's smile was cruel. A man no woman wants. He has said no to every bride for 15 years. He is strange, cold. Some say he is cursed. The words hit Elena like stones. This was her punishment, for being bold, for being herself, for not being the perfect lady they wanted. You leave tomorrow, her father said. Pack your things. Elena stood still. Her hands shook, but inside something fierce grew. No man will ever want you anyway, her sister whispered. At least this way you are someone else's problem. The cruel words burned, but Elena lifted her chin. She would not break. She would not cry in front of them. Fine, she said. Her voice was steady, strong. Send me away, but I will not be broken. That night, Elena packed her few things. She looked in the mirror. Her face was plain. Her hair was simple. But her eyes burned with fire. Let them send me, she whispered to herself. I am stronger than they know. The next morning, a black carriage waited outside. Elena climbed in. She did not look back at her family. She did not say goodbye. As the carriage rolled away, Elena felt afraid. But also, for the first time in her life, she was leaving, going somewhere new. Maybe this Count Adrian would be cruel. Maybe he would hate her too. But maybe, just maybe, things could be different. The wheels turned on the rough road. Each mile took her further from her old life, closer to whatever waited ahead. Elena pressed her hand to the cold window. I will not break, she said again, and this time she almost believed it. Count Adrian stood on his castle wall. The morning mist covered his lands. He watched his people work in the fields below. He was not like other lords. He did not care for fancy clothes or court games. He cared for his land, for his people, for duty. But the people whispered about him. They called him the Cold Count. Some said he was cursed. Others said his heart was made of stone. They were wrong, and they were right. 15 years ago, Adrian had loved a woman, Lady Catherine. She was beautiful, perfect, everything a count should want. He had given her his whole heart, made plans for their future, dreamed of children and happiness. Then, one day, she left. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a letter saying she found someone richer, someone better. The pain nearly killed him. Adrian locked his heart away. He swore never to love again, never to trust again. Every family tried to match their daughters with him. Rich fathers came with offers. Beautiful women smiled and flattered him. Adrian said no to them all. I will never marry, he told his advisor Thomas. Love is a lie, marriage is a trap. But Thomas was wise. He knew Adrian's heart was not truly dead, just sleeping. My lord, Thomas said one day, there is a new offer from the Whitmore family. Adrian barely looked up from his papers. No, as always. But sir, this girl is different. They say she is unwanted, plain, too bold for proper society. Something in those words made Adrian pause. Unwanted. He knew that pain. They are trying to get rid of her, Thomas continued. She has no other options. Adrian remembered his own shame, the whispers when Catherine left, the looks of pity, the feeling of being thrown away. His chest tightened. What is her name? Elena Whitmore. Adrian was quiet for a long time. Outside, birds sang in the trees. Life went on. But inside, something stirred. She has nowhere else to go, he asked. No, my lord. Her family sees her as a burden. Adrian closed his eyes. He thought of that young woman, alone, rejected, feeling worthless. He had the power to say no, to leave her trapped with cruel family, to let her suffer as he once suffered. But that was not who he was, not who he wanted to be. Send word, Adrian said quietly. I will meet with her. Thomas blinked in shock. My lord, you will. Yes, Adrian stood. He looked out at his lands again. If she has no one, then perhaps we can help each other. That night, Adrian walked his empty halls. Portraits of his ancestors watched from the walls. Men who had loved, who had built families, who had been happy. For 15 years, these halls had been silent. No laughter, no warmth, just duty and loneliness. Maybe it was time for that to change. Not for love, he would never love again, but for companionship, for understanding, for two broken people finding peace together. Elena Whitmore, he said her name aloud. It sounded nice. Tomorrow, she would arrive, his bride-to-be, the woman no one wanted. Adrian smiled slightly. Perhaps they would understand each other after all. The carriage stopped with a jolt. Elena's heart pounded as she looked out the window. The castle was huge. Dark stone walls reached toward grey clouds. Tall windows stared down like cold eyes. We are here, miss, the driver said. His voice was not unkind. Elena stepped down. Her legs shook. The wind whipped her simple dress around her ankles. The main door opened. An older man stepped out. He had kind eyes and grey hair. Lady Elena, he asked. I am Thomas, the Count's advisor. Welcome. Elena nodded. She could not speak. Fear filled her throat. Thomas led her inside. The halls were vast. Her footsteps echoed on stone floors. Tapestries hung on the walls. Everything was clean, but cold. The Count will see you shortly, Thomas said. Please sit by the fire. Warm yourself. Elena sat in a large chair. The fire crackled beside her. She stared at the flames. Her hands would not stop shaking. What if he was cruel? What if he laughed at her plain face? What if he sent her away? Then, footsteps in the hall. Elena stood quickly, too quickly. She nearly fell. The door opened, and Count Adrian walked in. Elena's breath caught. He was not what she expected. He was tall, strong. Dark hair touched his shoulders. His face was serious, but not mean. His eyes were deep brown, sad, but not cold. He was handsome, very handsome. Elena felt even plainer beside him. She wanted to hide. Adrian stopped a few feet away. He looked at her for a long moment. Elena waited for the cruel words, the disappointment, the rejection. Instead, he bowed. Simple, respectful. Lady Elena. His voice was deep, quiet. Thank you for coming. Elena blinked. She had expected harshness. Instead, he sounded polite, almost gentle. My lord, she whispered. She tried to curtsy, nearly fell again. Adrian stepped forward. Are you hurt? The journey was long. More kindness. Elena's eyes filled with confused tears. I am well, my lord. Please, sit. He gestured to the chair. Are you warm enough? Do you need food? Water? Elena sat slowly. She stared at him. You are asking about my comfort. Adrian's eyebrows rose slightly. Of course, you are my guest. Guest. Not burden, not punishment. Guest. I expected. That is, my family said. What did they say? Elena looked down. That you would not want me, that no one would. The room fell silent, only the fire crackled. When Elena looked up, Adrian's face had changed. The sadness in his eyes was deeper now, but also something like understanding. "Your family was wrong," he said quietly. "You are welcome here." Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. She had not cried when her family was cruel, but this unexpected kindness broke her. "I am sorry," she whispered. I am not. I know you wanted someone better." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat in the chair across from her, close enough to speak softly, far enough to give her space. "Elena," he said her name gently, "I did not want anyone, but if I must have a wife, I would rather have one who understands pain." Elena looked at him through her tears. "You understand pain?" "Yes." His voice was barely a whisper. "I understand it very well." Something passed between them, a recognition, two wounded souls, seeing each other clearly. "Will you stay for dinner?" Adrian asked. "We can talk more, get to know each other." Elena wiped her tears. For the first time in years, she felt a tiny spark of hope. "Yes," she said, "I would like that." Adrian almost smiled. "Almost. Good. Thomas will show you to your room. Rest. We will talk tonight." As Elena followed Thomas upstairs, she felt different, still afraid, still uncertain, but not alone. Maybe Count Adrian was strange. Maybe he was cold. But he had been kind. He had asked about her comfort. He had not laughed at her tears. For the first time, Elena thought maybe this could work. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through tall windows. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then memory returned. The castle, Count Adrian, her new life. She dressed in her simple gown, brushed her plain brown hair. In the mirror she looked the same, but something felt different. A soft knock at her door. "Lady Elena?" Thomas's voice was kind. "Breakfast is ready." Elena found the dining room. It was huge. The table could seat 20 people, but only one place was set. "Where is Count Adrian?" she asked. "He eats early, my lady. He is already working with the farmers." Elena ate alone. The food was good, better than home, but the silence felt heavy. After breakfast, Thomas showed her the castle, room after room of stone and tapestries, a library with hundreds of books, a music room with a beautiful piano. "You may go anywhere you like," Thomas said. "This is your home now." Home. Elena had never felt at home anywhere. "Even outside?" she asked. Thomas smiled. "Of course. The Count said you enjoy fresh air." Elena's heart lifted. At her family's house, she was not allowed to walk alone. Too improper, too bold. She spent the morning exploring the gardens. They were beautiful, but lonely, like everything here. In the afternoon, she walked toward the village. She saw Count Adrian speaking with farmers. His voice was calm, patient. The men respected him. He saw her watching, nodded politely, but did not come over. Elena felt invisible again. That evening, she ate dinner alone again. The silence pressed down on her. The next day was the same, and the next. Elena began to think Adrian regretted his choice. He was polite when they passed in the halls, but distant, cold. On the fourth day, Elena could not stand it anymore. She found Thomas in the library. "Does Count Adrian hate me?" she asked. Thomas looked surprised. "Hate you? No, my lady. Why would you think that? He avoids me. We barely speak." Thomas's face softened. "The Count is not used to company. He has lived alone for many years." "Then why did he agree to marry me?" "Perhaps you should ask him yourself." That evening, Elena did something bold. Instead of eating alone, she went to Adrian's study. She knocked softly. "Count Adrian, may I speak with you?" The door opened. Adrian stood there, papers in his hand. He looked surprised. "Elena, is something wrong?" Elena's courage almost failed, but she pushed on. I wonder if I could eat dinner with you tonight. Adrian blinked. You want to eat with me? Yes, if thee to... For a moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then something in his face shifted. Of course, he said. I would like that. Dinner was quiet at first, but slowly they began to talk about the weather, the castle, the village. The farmers seem to respect you, Elena said. I try to be fair, to listen to their needs. That is good. My father never listened to anyone. Adrian looked at her. Your family was not kind to you. It was not a question, Elena nodded. They thought I was wrong, too loud, too bold. And what do you think? Elena paused. No one had ever asked her that. I think I am who I am. I cannot be someone else. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I would not want you to be someone else. Elena's heart skipped. You would not? No, the world has enough quiet, proper ladies. Perhaps it needs more bold ones. For the first time since arriving, Elena smiled, really smiled. And for just a second, Adrian smiled back. Days turned into weeks. Elena settled into castle life, but she could not just sit idle. She noticed things. The cook's daughter was sick with fever. The young maids could not read. The village children had no school. Elena had always been good at helping others. At home, her family called it meddling. Here, maybe it could be useful. She started small. She made soup for the sick child, sat by her bed, read her stories. You have a gentle touch, the cook said, tears in her eyes. My Anna is better already. Elena's heart warmed. I am glad to help. Next, she offered to teach the maids to read. They were nervous at first. A lady teaching servants. It was not proper. But Elena did not care about proper. Reading opens doors, she told them. Every woman deserves that chance. Soon, 5 young women gathered in the library each evening. Elena taught them letters, words, simple sentences. Their joy, when they read their first full page, it filled Elena with purpose. Count Adrian noticed. He said nothing, but she saw him watching from the doorway, sometimes. One morning, Elena walked to the village. An old woman sat crying outside her cottage. What is wrong? Elena asked. My grandson. He cut his hand badly. I do not know how to help him. Eleni had watched her grandmother tend wounds. She knew about herbs, about cleaning cuts, about stopping bleeding. May I look? She asked. The woman nodded desperately. Elena cleaned the wound, applied healing herbs, wrapped it carefully. The boy's pain eased. You saved his hand, the grandmother whispered. Thank you. Word spread quickly. Lady Elena had healing skills. Soon people came to her with small hurts, headaches, cuts, stomach pains. Elena helped them all. She felt useful, needed, important. For the first time in her life, people looked at her with respect instead of pity. One evening, Count Adrian found her in the library. She was teaching Mary, one of the maids, to write her name. Look, my lady, Mary said excitedly. I wrote it myself. Elena beamed. You did perfectly. After Mary left, Adrian sat down across from Elena. You have been busy, he said. Elena tensed. If you disapprove. I do not disapprove. His voice was quiet. I am impressed. Elena looked up in surprise. You are? The people speak of you with great fondness. You have brought light to this place. Elena's cheeks warmed. I want to help, to be useful. You are much more than useful, Elena. You are remarkable. The word hit Elena like sunshine after rain. Remarkable. Her family had called her many things, but never remarkable. I always felt wrong, she whispered, like I did not fit anywhere. Adrian leaned forward. Perhaps you were not wrong. Perhaps the places you lived before were too small for who you are. Elena's eyes filled with tears, good tears, happy tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Adrian reached across the table. For a moment, his fingers touched hers, warm, gentle. Then he pulled back, but the kindness remained in his eyes. "Thank you, Elena, for bringing life to these walls again." That night, Elena lay in bed smiling. She was not just surviving here, she was thriving. She was becoming who she was meant to be. Weeks passed in gentle routine. Elena taught her reading classes, helped with healing, brought laughter to the castle halls. Adrian watched her bloom. This quiet, sad woman was becoming someone bright, someone strong, someone beautiful. Not beautiful like Lady Catherine had been. Beautiful in a deeper way, in her kindness, her courage, her genuine heart. One evening, storm clouds gathered outside, rain beat against the windows. Elena sat by the fire, reading. Adrian found her there. "May I join you?" Of course. Elena moved over on the small sofa. They sat in comfortable silence. The fire crackled, rain drummed on glass. The castle felt cozy instead of cold. "What are you reading?" Adrian asked. Elena showed him the cover. "Poetry. I love how words can paint pictures." "Read me something?" Elena's cheeks flushed. You want to hear my voice?" "Very much." Elena opened to a favorite page. Her voice was soft but clear as she read about love and loss and hope. Adrian closed his eyes. Her voice was like music, like warmth on a cold night. When she finished, they sat quietly. "Beautiful," Adrian said. "The poem?" "Yes, and the reader." Elena's breath caught. "Adrian." It was the first time she had used his name without his title. It felt intimate. "Elena," he said softly, "may I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you ever feel lonely, even when people are around?" Elena looked at him. His face was open, vulnerable. "Yes, all my life. I have felt that way since—" He paused. "Since someone I trusted broke my heart." Elena's chest tightened. "What happened?" Adrian stared into the fire. "Her name was Catherine. I loved her completely, planned to marry her, give her everything. She left for someone richer, someone with a better title. She said I was not enough." Elena's heart broke for him. She was wrong. Adrian looked at her. "Was she?" "Yes." Elena's voice was fierce. "You are kind, honorable. You care for your people. You gave me a home when no one else would. You are wonderful." Adrian's eyes filled with surprise. "You think I am wonderful?" "I think you are the best man I have ever known." Something shifted between them. The air grew warm, electric. Adrian reached up, touched Elena's cheek gently. "And I think you are extraordinary." Elena leaned into his touch. "I never felt extraordinary before." "Then you were surrounded by blind people." Elena laughed softly. Adrian smiled. A real smile. The first she had seen. "I like your laugh," he said. I like your smile." They moved closer. Elena's heart raced. Adrian's hand stayed on her cheek. "Elena," he whispered, "I think I am falling in love with you." Elena's eyes filled with tears, happy tears. "I think I am falling in love with you too." Adrian leaned down, kissed her forehead. Soft, sweet, perfect. "I never thought I would feel this way again," he said. "I never thought I would feel this way at all." They held each other as the storm raged outside, but inside everything was warm, safe, right. For the first time in years, neither of them felt alone. Love was blooming in the cold castle, fragile but real, beautiful but frightening. Because they both knew, love could be lost, hearts could be broken. But tonight they had each other. And that was enough. 3 months of happiness passed like a beautiful dream. Eleanor and Adrian grew closer each day. They talked by the fire, walked in the gardens, shared quiet smiles across the dinner table. Elena had never been so happy. She was loved, respected, valued. The village people adored her. The castle staff smiled when she passed. Children ran to hug her in the streets. She was becoming the woman she was always meant to be. Then, one morning, 3 carriages arrived at the castle gates. Elena looked out her window. Her blood turned cold. Her family, her mother's sharp face, her father's cold stare, her sister Mary's cruel smile. "No," Elena whispered. "Not now. Please, not now." Thomas knocked on her door. "Lady Elena, your family is here. They request an audience." Elena's hands shook as she dressed. She walked downstairs on unsteady legs. Her family waited in the main hall. They looked around with disdain, like the castle was not grand enough. "Elena," her mother's voice cut like ice, "you look different." "Mother," Elena tried to keep her voice steady. "Why are you here?" "To check on our investment," her father said coldly. "Make sure you are fulfilling your duties." Mary smirked. "Though from what we hear, you are playing servant instead of lady, teaching peasants to read, tending sick children like a common nurse." Elena lifted her chin. "I help people. There is honor in that." Her mother laughed harshly. "Honor? You are embarrassing our family name, acting like a peasant yourself." "That is enough." Adrian's voice came from the doorway. He walked in, tall and commanding. "Elena is a credit to your family. You should be proud." Elena's father stood. "Count Adrian, we need to discuss your wife's behavior." "My future wife's behavior is admirable. She brings light wherever she goes." "She brings shame," her mother snapped. "No proper lady acts as she does." "Then perhaps," Adrian said coldly, "the world needs fewer proper ladies." Elena's heart soared. He was defending her, standing up for her. But her family was not finished. "We know the truth," Mary said with a vicious smile. "You only married her because no one else would have her. This is charity, not love." The words hit Elena like physical blows. She saw doubt flicker in Adrian's eyes. "That is not," he started. "Of course it is," her father interrupted. "Our plain, troublesome daughter for your need for an heir, a business arrangement, nothing more." Elena felt her world cracking. Was that all this was? Charity? Pity? "Tell her the truth, Count Adrian," her mother demanded. "Tell her this is not some fairy tale love story." Elena looked at Adrian, waited for him to deny it, to say he loved her truly, completely. But Adrian was quiet, too quiet. The silence stretched like a knife through Elena's heart. Adrian finally spoke. "Elena, you must understand." That was all Elena needed to hear. He could not deny it, because it was true. This was charity, pity, 2 unwanted people settling for each other. "I understand," Elena whispered. Her voice was steady, but her heart was shattering. "I understand perfectly." She turned and ran from the room, up the stairs, to her chambers. She slammed the door, and finally let herself cry. All those months of happiness, all those feelings of love and worth and belonging, all of it, a lie. Outside her door, she heard voices, arguments, her family's cruel laughter, Adrian's voice, trying to explain. But Elena did not listen. She had heard enough truth for one day. She was still the unwanted daughter, still the burden no one chose. And love was still just a dream for other people. Elena cried until she had no tears left. Then she sat by her window, staring at nothing. Her family's words echoed in her mind. Charity, pity, no one else would have her. But slowly, other voices joined them. The cook praising her gentle touch, the maids thanking her for teaching them, village children calling her name with joy. Thomas's words, "You have brought light to this place." And Adrian's voice, Just last night, I think you are extraordinary." Elena stood slowly, walked to her mirror. The face looking back was still plain, still simple, but the eyes were different now. They were the eyes of a woman who had healed the sick, who had taught the illiterate, who had brought laughter to sad places. They were the eyes of someone who mattered. A knock at her door. "Elena." Adrian's voice, soft with pain. "Please, let me explain." Elena opened the door. Adrian stood there, his face full of anguish. "Elena, what they said, it was not the whole truth." "What part was true?" Elena asked quietly. Adrian flinched. "At first, yes, I agreed to the marriage because you were unwanted. Like me, I thought we could find companionship in our shared pain." The honesty hurt, but Elena respected him for it. "And now?" she asked. "Now I love you, truly, completely. You are not charity, Elena. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Elena studied his face. She saw truth there, but also fear, doubt. "You still see me as the unwanted girl," she said, "the one who needed rescuing." "No, Yes." Eleanor's voice grew stronger. "You see someone to pity, to protect, not an equal." Adrian opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, because she was right. "Elena, please." "No." Elena stepped back. "I need to think. I need space." She closed the door gently but firmly. That evening, Elena's family demanded dinner with the Count. Elena joined them, her spine straight, her head high. "Elena," her mother began, "we have decided this marriage is unsuitable. You will return home with us." "No," Elena said calmly. Her family stared. Elena had never said no to them before. "Excuse me," her father's voice was ice. "I said no." Elena's voice was steady, strong. "I will not return with you." "You have no choice," Mary laughed. "You are nothing without us, nothing without him." She gestured at Adrian. Elena stood. Every person in the room looked at her. "You are wrong," she said clearly. "I am Elena. I heal the sick. I teach the illiterate. I bring joy to sad children. I am valued here, respected here, loved here. By servants and peasants," her mother sneered. "By good people with kind hearts, which is more than I can say for you." The room fell silent. Elena's family looked shocked. Adrian stared at her with something like awe. Elena turned to her family. "You threw me away because I did not fit your narrow vision of what a woman should be, but I have found my place, my purpose, my worth." She looked at each of them in turn. "I am not your burden anymore. I am not anyone's burden. I am a woman with value, with skills, with love to give." Her father stood angrily. "You ungrateful." "I am grateful," Elena interrupted. "Grateful you sent me away, because it brought me here, to a place where I can be myself." Elena turned to Adrian. "And you, I love you, but I will not be your charity case. I will not be the woman you settled for. If you want me as an equal, or not at all." Adrian rose slowly. His eyes were bright with admiration, with love, with respect. "Elena," he said, his voice rang through the hall, "you are not my charity. You are my salvation. You are not the woman I settled for. You are the woman I choose, every day, with my whole heart." He walked to her, took her hands. "You are my equal in every way, my partner, my love, my extraordinary wife." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but she was not finished. She turned back to her family one last time. "I forgive you for the years of cruelty, for making me believe I was worthless, but I will never again let anyone make me feel small." Elena stood tall, proud, strong. "I am Elena, and I know my worth." The room erupted. Her family argued and threatened, but Elena did not flinch. She had found her voice, her strength, her truth, and she would never be silent again. Elena's family left the next morning in fury. They threatened to spread rumors, to ruin her reputation, to make her regret her defiance. Elena watched their carriages disappear and felt free. "Are you sad?" Adrian asked, standing beside her. "No," Elena said. "I am relieved." That afternoon, the village held its harvest festival. Elena and Adrian walked through the celebration together. "Lady Elena," children called out, running to hug her. "Will you tell us a story?" "Lady Elena," an old woman approached. "My arthritis is better since you gave me that herb mixture." Lady Elena, a young mother, smiled. "My daughter read her first book yesterday. Thank you for teaching her." Everywhere they went, people greeted Elena with genuine love, with respect, with gratitude. "They adore you," Adrian said softly. "They see me," Elena replied. "The real me, not what I should be, what I am." That evening, the castle held its own celebration. The great hall filled with laughter and music. Servants and lords mingled freely. Everyone was welcome. Elena moved through the crowd, ensuring everyone had food and drink, making sure no one felt left out. "She is remarkable," Thomas said to Adrian. "In 6 months, she has transformed this place." Adrian watched Elena laughing with the children, teaching an old man to dance, wiping tears from a young woman's eyes. "She transformed me too," Adrian said quietly. As the evening wound down, Adrian stood before the crowd. "Friends," he called out. The hall grew quiet. 6 months ago, a remarkable woman came to our castle. Some said she was unwanted, unwelcome. They were wrong. Elena blushed as every eye turned to her. "Lady Elena has brought light to our darkest corners, hope to our hardest days, love to our loneliest hearts." He walked to Elena, took her hand. "She has shown us all what true nobility looks like. It is not in titles or wealth. It is in kindness, in service, in lifting others up." The crowd murmured agreement. "Elena," Adrian said, his voice soft but carrying through the hall, "will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not from duty, not from arrangement, but from love, pure, true, freely chosen love." Elena's eyes filled with happy tears. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." The hall erupted in cheers. People clapped and laughed and cried. Elena had found her fairy tale, but she had written it herself. 3 days later, they married in the village church, not in a grand cathedral with important guests, but surrounded by the people who truly loved them. The cook made the cake, the maids decorated with flowers, the children sang songs. Elena wore a simple white dress. Adrian wore his finest clothes. Both wore smiles that could light up the world. "Do you, Adrian, take Elena as your wife? To love and honor as your equal?" "I do," Adrian said firmly, "with all my heart." "Do you, Elena, take Adrian as your husband, to love and support as your partner?" "I do," Elena said clearly, "with all my soul." As they kissed, the crowd cheered again. Church bells rang across the countryside. Elena was no longer the unwanted daughter. She was Lady Elena, beloved wife, cherished friend, respected healer, valued teacher. She was exactly who she was meant to be. That night, as they danced in the castle courtyard under the stars, Adrian whispered in her ear, "Thank you for showing me what love really is." Elena smiled up at him. "Thank you for giving me a place to bloom." Around them, their people celebrated, music played, children laughed, hearts were full. The unwanted girl had found her kingdom. The closed-hearted man had found his joy. Together, they had found their home. 5 years passed like pages in a beautiful book. Elena stood in the castle garden, watching her children play. Little Catherine, named for no one from the past, chased butterflies with chubby legs. Baby James slept in Elena's arms, his tiny fist wrapped around her finger. The gardens bloomed with more than flowers now. They bloomed with laughter, with life, with love. "Mama," Catherine ran to Elena, her dark hair flying. "Look, I caught one." She opened her small hands. A butterfly sat on her palm, wings shimmering in the sunlight. "Beautiful, darling. Now let it fly free." Catherine giggled and opened her hands wider. The butterfly danced away on the breeze. "Just like you did, Mama," Catherine said seriously. "Daddy says you learned to fly free too." Elena's heart swelled. "Did he now?" "Yes, he says you were in a cage, but you were too strong for cages." Elena knelt beside her daughter. "What else does Daddy say?" "That strong women make the world better, that I should be strong too." "And what do you think?" Catherine stood tall, lifted her chin. "I think I am already strong, like you." Elena laughed and hugged her tight. "Yes, my love, you are." Footsteps on the garden path. Adrian walked toward them, his face bright with happiness. Baby James reached for his father with a happy gurgle. "How are my 3 favorite people?" Adrian asked, kissing Elena's cheek and lifting Catherine into his arms. "Perfect," Elena said, and meant it. That evening, after the children were asleep, Elena and Adrian walked through their village. The streets were clean and safe. Children played in the squares. Adults gathered to talk and laugh. "The school is finished," Adrian said, pointing to a new stone building. 50 children will start classes next month." "And the new healer's house?" Elena asked. "Ready for your apprentice to move in. Young Sarah is eager to begin." Elena smiled. She had trained 3 women in healing arts now. Each one spread knowledge and care to new places. They stopped at the village well. Someone had carved words in the stone, "Lady Elena's well for all who thirst." "The people did that," Adrian said softly, "while you were recovering from James's birth." Elena traced the letters with her finger. "I never dreamed when I first came here, I never dreamed I could matter this much. You matter to everyone here, to me, to our children. Even on the hardest days, especially on the hardest days." Adrian pulled her close. "You taught me that love is not about perfection. It is about choosing each other, every single day." Elena leaned into his embrace. "I choose you, today and always. And I choose you, my extraordinary wife." Above them, stars filled the dark sky. Around them, their home settled into peaceful sleep. Elena thought back to that frightened girl who had arrived 5 years ago. Plain, unwanted, broken. That girl still lived inside her. But now she was surrounded by strength, by purpose, by unshakable love. "Adrian?" Elena said softly. "Yes? Do you think Catherine will face the same struggles, being a strong woman in a world that prefers quiet ones?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps, but she will face them with something you did not have." "What is that?" "Parents who believe in her strength, a home that celebrates her boldness, a village that sees her worth." Elena smiled. "Yes, she will never doubt her value. Never, and neither will you, not anymore." Elena looked around at their thriving village, their happy home, their beautiful children sleeping safely in warm beds. She had been thrown away like a broken thing, but she had not been broken. She had been unfinished. This place, these people, this love, they had helped her become complete. "I love our life," Elena whispered. "So do I," Adrian replied. "Every imperfect, wonderful moment of it." Hand in hand, they walked home, to their castle that was no longer cold, to their children who would grow up knowing they were treasured, to their future that stretched bright and endless before them. Elena had learned to fly free, and in doing so, she had lifted everyone around her. The unwanted daughter had become a beloved mother. The plain girl had become a beautiful woman. The burden had become a blessing. And love had transformed them all. In the castle tower, a light burned in the window. a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt unwanted, who had ever felt worthless, who had ever felt alone. It whispered a promise on the night wind. You are enough. You are valuable. You are loved. You just need to find the right place to bloom.